Are you ready to take your podcasting dreams from idea to execution? From Mic to Market is your ultimate guide to creating, growing, and thriving in the podcasting world. Whether you're a newbie wondering how to get started or a seasoned podcaster looking to level up, this show provides actionable tips, expert insights, and motivational stories to help you succeed. Join us every week as we explore topics like crafting compelling content, building your brand, engaging your audience, and monetizing your podcast. Learn from industry pros, avoid common pitfalls, and gain the confidence to share your voice with the world. It's time to stop dreaming and start podcasting. Your audience is waiting. Thanks so much for tuning in to From Mic to Market. Today, we're going to talk about starting that podcast in 2026 with a simple setup and launch timeline, and I promise no super expensive gear required. I know some of you might be thinking, hey, it's February. Why are we starting this now? Shouldn't we have done it in January? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, there is so much hubbub going on in January with New Year's resolutions and trying to get on track or to start something that turns into something you tend to give up in the first couple of weeks, that February seems like, okay, the dust has settled. We are settling into the year. Let's really roll up our sleeves and get to work. So that's why we're starting with a podcast now in 2026 in February. So if you are trying to start a podcast for either your business or for your hobbies, or just because it's something you've always wanted to do and are getting overwhelmed, trust me, it is easier than it looks. So many people quit podcasting or never even launch that first episode, not because they run out of ideas. They quit because the process itself feels messy. They feel like the recording and the audio sound is off. They don't know how to edit, or they don't like editing. They get overwhelmed with things like hosting, distribution, show notes, or they lose momentum after 2 to 3 episodes. A podcast doesn't fail because you're not talented. It fails because the workflow itself isn't sustainable. So we're going to break down a couple of steps to help get you past that point. First step, let's pick a format that you can actually maintain. Before you buy anything, decide what you're actually going to be producing. And there are several different formats to choose from. You can do a solo episode where you're talking for about 10 to 20 minutes. You know, this is great for coaches, entrepreneurs, consultants, anyone who wants to be thought of as a thought leader. Or you could do an interview show, and they're typically about 30, 45 minutes or something like that. It's great for networking, building credibility fast, and having another person with you to ask questions to kind of helps lessen the burden of having to create content by yourself. Another option is to do mini-series seasons, and these are shows that tell a complete story within a certain amount of episodes, normally about 6 or 10. Think of things like Archive 81. A lot of true crime podcasts use the miniseries format, and it's a self-contained structure built in, and there's breaks. So you can do one story in the story, take a 2 or 3 week break, and then go back and do another season covering a whole different person, different topic, different story altogether. And finally, you can also do all of these things as video podcasts. So when you get started, one of the things that I suggest you do is start with audio and then move into doing video podcasts, just so that you can get the feel of, 1, talking in a microphone, 2, talking often. And it also cuts down on editing. Video editing versus audio editing are 2 different animals, and it could be very overwhelming to jump in and just start with video editing. So pro tip here, if you're busy, start with the shorter episodes. Remember, consistency beats length. So if you're able to produce a 10-minute episode every week, go for it. Produce that 10-minute episode. That's the way to go. The second thing is to keep your equipment simple and then just slowly but surely upgrade. To be honest, all you really need to start your podcast is a USB microphone, headphones, and a quiet room or soft surfaces such as carpet, curtains, or even a closet to work in. These three things and being able to just hit record makes doing your podcast so easy. Actually, with all three of those things, having the headphones, USB microphone, and a quiet place to record will automatically make your podcast sound really great. Some environmental things to take into consideration when you start recording is when you're recording, turn off fans and AC during the recordings. I live in Vegas, and during the summer, it is unbearably hot out here. So turning off the AC is not something that I could do. But what I can do and what I normally do is I will start recording in the evenings when the air conditioning is not kicking on as often. Another thing you can do is put a blanket on a table just for sound dampening. That way you sound a little more full. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be clear. Since we talked about recording your podcast, let's look at some of the things that you could do to make recording the actual show itself easy. A simple checklist will prevent 90% of your podcasting headaches. So before you hit record, silence your phone. Check your mic input, not your laptop mic. Do a 10-second test recording. Make sure everything sounds good. Confirm your guest audio is coming through clean if you have a guest. And keep water nearby because you're going to talk a lot and you're going to get thirsty and your throat's going to get dry. During recording, just pause instead of restarting when you mess up. If you really want to make editing easier, once you mess up or once you've paused, clap once after you're done, and that way it creates an edit point, which will make it easier for you to go in and edit if you're not trying to edit the whole thing at once. And don't overthink it. Your energy matters more than perfection. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect at first. Just get the information out there. Start creating. So speaking of editing, let's talk about some basic editing things that you could do without getting lost. And let's be honest, editing is where most podcasters get stuck. So we're going to keep this simple. At a minimum, your episode should include the following: volume leveling, so listeners aren't turning you up and down to hear you. Light noise reduction, don't overdo it, but cutting some of the outside noise if you can. Do a little bit of trimming. And that's essentially just the long pauses, the awkward starts, the repeated sentences, all the things that you are doing while you're recording, the self-edit moments. Trim those out. And create an intro and outro for your show, even if it's just a short one. If editing overwhelms you and you're just doing audio editing, one of the tools that I used to get started was called Audacity. Audacity is an audio editing software that is super user-friendly, and there are so many YouTube tutorials, and it's free. It's a great place to start. Eventually, you can build from there and use more advanced software. Audacity, the good thing about it is they are always improving and updating. So it might be a while before you even decide you want to look into using something else, because Audacity is always working to better themselves. So let's talk about some simple DIY editing. So let's break down a simple DIY editing workflow. Import your audio. Remove the obvious mistakes and long silences. Apply some light noise reduction if needed. Level the volume so it's consistent, and then add your intro and outro. Export and listen to the first minute or two as a quality check. Remember, your first goal isn't radio perfect. Your first goal is publishable and consistent. So now that we've talked about editing, let's talk about what the first 6 episodes should even be and how to prep for that. So what should you talk about each week? Week 1 should be your origin story and who this show is for. Week 2, a problem your audience is dealing with. Week 3, a common myth, and what's actually true. Week 4, use it as a step-by-step framework to teach. Week 5, do some kind of case study or client transformation. This is the perfect time to have one of your clients as a guest to talk about where they're at in their business or how what you've done has helped them. And then do a Q&A episode with real questions or frequently asked questions. When your content is planned, consistency is so much easier. So if you follow that 6-episode starter map, how do you do each episode? So let's look at a launch timeline. Most podcasts can go from concept to first episode within 2 to 3 weeks without chaos. So let's break down what those 2 to 3 weeks are. Week 1, build your foundation. Name your show, define your audience and core topics, choose a format and episode length, and create cover art. We'll go over cover art in another episode, but simple and readable win. That second week, start thinking about production setup. Finalize your recording setup, write your intro and outro, and record about 1 to 2 episodes. Get a feel for what this is like for you. Week 3, think about editing and your assets. So edit the first couple of episodes you've done, write show notes, and create a simple episode template. Title, description, links, however you want to do this. And finally, think about distribution and launch. What you should do is upload to a podcast host that makes it a whole lot easier, distribute to major platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, publish at least 2 live episodes, and then promote with short clips and clear calls to action, like tune in this week for this episode or click the link below to check out our full episode, things like that. And why publish with 2 episodes? It gives listeners a chance to binge, and it makes you feel established from day one. So now that we came up with a timeline, let's talk about some mistakes new podcasters make. The first mistake is that they treat podcasting like a one-time project. Podcasting is a system. The goal isn't to launch. The goal is to build a workflow you can repeat. If you want a podcast that supports your business, you need a consistent recording rhythm, a simple editing process, a publishing schedule you can stick to, and a way to repurpose content, either clips, quotes, emails, posts. And just remember, DIY doesn't mean doing everything forever. The smart approach is to start simple, build consistency, and upgrade what's slowing you down. For some, editing becomes the first thing they want to outsource. For others, it's getting a better microphone or setting up a nicer area to record. It's whatever is slowing you down. Have you ever hit that point where editing is eating up your weekends? And you will hit that point. You can always outsource that later. You don't need to outsource it to start. So, are you ready to start your podcast in 2026? If you want a second set of eyes to look at your podcast idea, format, or launch plan, just reach out. I'll be happy to take a look at it. You can email me at info@simplypodcasting.io or go to the simplypodcasting.io website and click the Contact Us button. If you're DIYing this and you're trying to figure out what the next step is, it's pick your format, plan your first 6 episodes, and record your first episode this week. I look forward to hearing what you have in store and hearing your new podcast episode. So if you're launching something new, please don't hesitate. Send me a link. I can't wait to hear it. Till next time.